With me today is Jean-Pierre Dijcks, Senior Principal Product Manager at Oracle. Glad to have you here. We are talking about Hadoop, NoSQL, and the classic Oracle database. So maybe you can tell me which one of these excels in terms of performance, security, and so on.
So I think you hit on the right topics like performance, security, and I think the third one is cost.
Definitely.
Which one excels at which? Well, they all kind of excel at something different. I think if you look at Hadoop, it's really, I would say, affordable scale. So cost is good, and it scales really, really well. You called it classical Oracle database. So the relational database, which I guess is no longer really a relational database, really excels at performance and then the security aspects of it. Because I think if you look at where it's used, security is a big thing and performance is a big thing. And then the third one is really the NoSQL databases. And there you see a little bit of both of those. You see excellent performance, but you really see that for very specific workloads. And so you kind of have this scale-out architecture. And so scale-out performance, I think, are the characteristics for NoSQL databases. So rounding them out, those are, I think, the attributes of those systems.
And are there certain cases, use cases, business cases, where you would prefer one or the other one?
I do think so. I mean, like I said, in Hadoop, we're talking about affordable scale. And so if you look at the hottest new trend, Internet of Things, for example, you see a lot of this sensor data being generated like everywhere. And Hadoop lends itself really well to pile all that sensor data in there because you got these thousands, hundreds, millions, whatever, any big number you can think of, and it will flow really nicely in Hadoop. So I think that's one of the primary use cases we'll see going forward. I'm going to contradict that a little bit, which is kind of fun. If you look at a NoSQL database, I think the right word is cache. In other words, use a cache, whether it's a read cache or a write cache. And so you could imagine that for real-time data, if you really want to see very fine-grained measurements on certain elements, to put a NoSQL database in front of your Hadoop cluster, because then you have a record-by-record ingest coming in. I think that works really well for NoSQL databases, a read or a write cache. I think, just to keep it somewhat simple, the relational database really plays a good role in analytics. How do I analyze that data? How do I do classical BI and data warehousing? And so that's where I think most people will see their value for that performance and that security they get from that relational database. So I think those are kind of, there's many more use cases, but those are some of the characteristics I would look at as to when would I use them and what are some of the use cases for those.
Okay. And do you think there are other important topics than security, cost, and performance to mention?
I think there's always important topics to consider. I always look at those three as kind of your yardstick. If I'm asked, so which one do I use for this application? Like I would start with those three. But then specifically in NoSQL databases, almost every one of them has a very specific sweet spot. So it does reads really well, or it does distribution really well. And so for NoSQL databases, I would say you have to look a little deeper, like what am I really trying to achieve here? The other thing is simplifying life is a very important thing. While it's nice to have all three, and in many cases there's a good argument to be made to have all these three, simplifying your life is a lot better. So if you can do it with one of these systems, that's better. If you need two, well, then you need two. But don't use them just because you've heard the word NoSQL and it's cool, so let's go have one. So simplify.
You're going for best fit approach in these cases. And it, as you said, you think it makes sense to use all three of them for certain cases? I
think so. I do have the feeling that we see NoSQL being a bit pigeonholed. If you look at relational database, if you look at Oracle, you see JSON document stores, you see REST APIs. So you do see that the relational database is capturing some of the key attributes of a NoSQL database. You see Hadoop doing similar things. So there is a bit of a squishing going on for them. But I do think that if you look specifically at Internet of Things, at real-time data streams, that you will have kind of the data at rest portion being Hadoop and the relational database, and you ingest the data, you analyze, do that. And then your NoSQL store, the third child in the family, is really like that low latency cache. I need to have a quick result, need to have a profile. So I think there is definitely use cases where you use all three. If you're looking at data warehousing analytics, I think you typically would look at database plus Hadoop, and you kind of leave the NoSQL side out.
Okay. So thank you very much for your explanations.
Very happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.